In the last video, we did our first run on iOS 15, fixed some warnings and fixed some UI issues. So our app is now good to go for iOS 15, so we can implement the new stuff. And the first bit of new stuff that we're going to talk about is the new UIButton configurations introduced in iOS 15. Before we dive into the code, let me back up, give you the big picture overview of like what these buttons are and their purpose of them. So as you can see in the background behind me, these are like Apple's like system style buttons, right? It really fits in with Apple's ecosystem. It looks like it belongs in an Apple app, that kind of thing. So essentially what these new configurations do is give you these 4 different variants, right? Plain, gray, tinted, filled. Which, as you can see on the screen, and like I said, these are very Apple-looking buttons. So instead of us having to recreate these Apple-looking buttons like we did in our app, these new button configurations give you a lot of this stuff like out of the box for free if you want them to look like Apple buttons. Now, if you have your own crazy custom button, you would do it the way we taught it before. You wouldn't worry about these button configurations. But again, if you want the Apple-looking buttons, these configurations are great. Before we dive into some code, let's do an overview of our current button setup. So I'm going to open our GF button, right? This is the custom button that we created. And you know what, for context, let's show you all the places we're using these GF buttons just to refresh your memory. So here on the main search screen, that get followers, that's a GF button. And if I hit it, our alert, that OK button is a GF button. And then if I go to favorites, Sean, click on someone, the GitHub profile, GitHub or get followers, those are GF buttons. So those are the places in our app that we're using our GF button. And if I close this now, basically every one of those buttons is of type GF button. So right, all of our work is going to be done in this file. Well, I shouldn't say all of it because we're going to change some initializers. So we're going to have to update where we're calling them. But for the most part, all the work is done in here. And this is a nice benefit of doing things programmatically where I can just change my GF button class and then everywhere I'm using GF button will update automatically. Okay, so in this GF button, I'll make it a little bigger here. Let's review real quick because we have 2 ways to initialize a GF button, right? We have our typical initializer, and then we have our convenience initializer that we put in play because we want to, be able to set the background color and the title. And real quick, just to refresh your memory in case you're coming back, the reason we set it up like this, if I go into the view controllers, our item info VC, remember we had this parent item info VC, and these are I'll put a screenshot up. These are the cards you see of the repos and the followers. Remember, those were subclasses of the GF item info VC. So here, as you can see on line 21, we're initializing a GF button without all the background color and title because we don't know what title it is yet. Those are handled in the subclass of those view controllers. Okay, I know that was a real quick overview, but you can go back and watch the videos if you want the in-depth version. But back to the GF button, we're going to be messing with these initializers and set and stuff like that. So actually, if you notice, our convenience initializer sets the background color and the title. Well, if you notice in the set function, right, we are setting the background color and the title. So one quick optimization, right? This has nothing to do with iOS 15, by the way. I could have just done this from the beginning. We can just call set. And the set function, as you see, takes in the background color, which we'll just continue to pass in, the background color, and then the string of title, which again, we have, whoops, hit the return button accidentally, that we have right here and right here. So again, that's just a small, easy refactor. And I'm doing that because we're going to be adding a lot to these functions down here. So the first thing I want to do is adopt one of these styles. Again, here's the 4 styles on the screen. For this app, we're going to go with tinted to change the look up a little bit and show you this, but I'll run through each of the 4 styles to show you what they are. So in our configure method, we want to set a configuration, right? And this configuration is what we're going to tweak to get the look we want. So I'll do configuration equals, and I'll do dot, and you see we get tinted, filled, gray, plain, right? Those were those styles that I showed. So we'll do tinted to get that tinted style. So now we can adjust the configuration how we want. And a lot of this is similar to what we already have because again, we recreated this Apple look button. Okay, so layer corner radius 10. We no longer have to hard code that. A great thing about the new buttons is they have built-in corner radius, right? So configuration dot corner style, and you'll see, we'll say equals dot, and you see we get medium, capsule, dynamic, fixed, large. Now, what is this? So small, medium, large is basically how big the corner radius is. Like we had 10, so maybe large would be like 25, right? Small would be small. Capsule would be what it sounds like, right? A capsule shape. So perfectly like rounded circular corners. We'll play with that later, but we'll do medium for now. Real quick, dynamic, as you can see, the description says a style that adjusts the background corner radius for dynamic type. So as the dynamic type changes, the corner radius will change with it. So for now, we'll do medium. And real quick, we're going to get our our initial setup, and then we'll come back and change some of these around and play with it. But I encourage you to change some of these properties around, run the app, play with it, just to learn more about these buttons. And I'm also going to link to the WWDC talk that goes really in depth on these buttons if you really want to do the deep dive. Okay, now we're going to actually get rid of the font because again, we're going with the default Apple style in this configuration. And the title color, we're going to keep the default. We're not going to set it to white because again, this is the tinted thing. With the background of the tinted buttons, they're already super light. So if you put white lettering on top of that, that won't look good. So we'll keep it the default style because remember, this is our basic configure, right? We do our custom stuff where we set background color, set the title down here. So this basic configure function is setting up just the base stuff, the stuff that every single button is going to have. So we don't want to set specific colors because each button is going to have different colors. So just write the standard stuff, right? We're going tinted configuration. We know all of our corner styles are going to be medium, and then we're going to do TAMIC. We're going to, translates, auto resizing, masking, and constraints. That's what we're going to have here. So let's clean that up a little bit. Now, again, that's just the standard configure. In our set function here, this is where we do all the customization. And we're pretty much going to replace these with the configuration way of doing things. So we can do configuration dot base background color. So again, pulling up the screenshot, the tint, right? You see we have the light green in the back, dark green in the front. So it's going to be the same color, but the tinted style will take care of the lightness and the darkness, right? They just changed the opacity, I believe. So we'll say that is the background color that we pass in, right? So when we set up these buttons, right, we pass in a color, except I'm going to change the name of this parameter to just color because it's no longer just the background color, right? We're doing the tint style that has, the same color for both the background and the foreground. So again, we'll do configuration.base foreground color. So again, foreground color is your text in these buttons, and we'll pass in color. I forgot to change that to color as well. And again, color is what we're passing in here. So here, down here in 42, the old way of doing the background color, that's gone. Here's also the old way of doing the title, that's gone. We can do configuration.title and we'll equals title, right? Whatever we pass in. And that should do it for our initial version. We're actually going to add images to these buttons, as you may have seen in the previous screenshots, but we're going to come back and do that later. But I want to show you how the basic button works. So you can kind of see this in action, because I know we've just been doing code. You haven't seen it yet. I'm a firm believer, and once you see it in action, the code makes more sense. So let's see it in action. As you can see here, this no longer takes in a background color. This just takes in a color, and that will be good there. So Command B. Cool, and then we still have errors because remember, we're calling this set function in other places. So let me click on that, right? Remember on our individual, right, GF follower item VC, which is a subclass of GF item info VC. Again, pulling up the screenshots, these are these individual cards that are subclasses of the overall view controller. Again, we did that earlier in the course, but this is where we're setting that stuff. So instead of background color, it's just color. And then there's one more in the other, child, I keep calling it child, subclass. Subclass, there you go. So now when I run the app, our buttons are going to have the tint style that I've been showing off in the screenshots. See, there's the get followers. Again, light green in the background, dark green in the foreground. And again, this is a choice of style if you want. So now when I click on, I don't know if we updated our alert, did we? Yeah, the alert updated. See that again, that's the power of like just updating your GF button subclass and all your buttons are good to go. Should be anyway. And then the last thing we'll look at is that card, which I guess I can just go to favorites. Click on a follower, and then now you see get a profile button, looks like the tinted style, get followers, looks like the tinted style. Now real quick, before we move on to adding images, I wanna show you how you can play with these styles here. So back to our GF button. So let's say we wanted to do dot filled. Now we would do our foreground color will be white because the fill is gonna be the background color that we pass in. So we want the text color to be white. So now just like that, all I had to do was change configuration to filled, and then my foreground color, because if I have a green background and a green foreground, you're not gonna be able to see the words, obviously. So change the foreground color to white, run it again. And real quick, I'm doing this just for testing purposes. Of course, if you were gonna use filled, maybe you would change your naming of your parameters and that kind of stuff, but I'm just showing you the different type of buttons real quick. So again, there's that button, get followers, cool. So you see very quickly to change between the styles. Let's take a look at gray here. So instead of filled, let's do dot gray. Now dot gray will always give you the gray background. However, so we don't want to change the base background color, right? So I'm going to comment that out for now because the whole purpose of this gray style button is to have gray backgrounds. So we only want to change the foreground color, and instead of being white, we can change that to the color that we pass in, right? Because we're passing in green, red, purple. So now we're going to have a gray background button with purple letters. And again, you can see how I'm changing the style of my buttons relatively quickly using these new configurations. And again, if you like the style, there's the style. So the button's gray, but the words are green. And if I hit that to get our error, cool. You see that's red for the letters. And again, if we go to here on a user, there you go. You can see you can get some different colors. So again, this is all about the style you want for your app. But like I said, using these configurations, super easy to change from each one. So we're going to go back to tinted and give me my background color back, color. Cool, everything should be good to go there. I'm gonna run it real quick just to check. Okay, cool, we're back to our tinted button color. Okay, we'll stop that. Now let's add an image to these buttons using SF symbols. And that's just more configuration stuff. So I'm gonna put a little extra space in there to visually separate them. So configuration.image, right? You can see we have image padding, image placement. Oh, and that's something I forgot to like really check. If you wanna see all the stuff on the configuration, you just hit dot and you can see all the different properties that you can change, and then you can read the descriptions to see like what they do. There's a lot more than we're doing here. And again, I recommend watching the WWDC video for the deep dive. So we just wanna do image, right? And we're going to set that equal to UI image, and then we're going to initialize the image with system name. Remember, this is how we get SF symbols. Don't just do, named, unless you actually have your custom image. We're using SF symbols, so we want to use system name, which will give us SF symbols. And then the string we're going to pass in, well, we don't want to pass in a specific string here, right? We're going to pass that in when we hit set. So we have to add another parameter here, right? We're going to tell it the color, we're going to tell it the title, and then now we also need to tell it what image to show. So we'll do comma, and I'm going to actually name this system image name. And the reason I didn't just do image name is because we're relying on SF symbols. So I want it to be very clear to the user of my code that, hey, this needs to be a system image name, not just any image name. That's how I'm communicating that. And then now we'll pass in the system image name there. So now when we're setting our colors and our titles, we're going to now have to pass in an image name. We'll get to that later. But you can also do configuration.image padding equals, and we'll do .6, because you'll see, and you can play with this on your own. If we didn't do image padding, the image is really tight to the title, and I like a little bit of breathing room between the elements. And then another thing you can do is configuration.image placement, right? You can do trailing, leading, bottom, top, right? So leading would be to the left. That's the default. That's what we're going to do. You could do trailing to put the image on the right, and then obviously top and bottom as well. So we're going to do leading. I'm going to leave the code there, even though if you want leading, you don't have to do any code because that's the default. But for you to play around, we're going to leave that there. Okay, so now that takes care of our image. I'm going to do a command B, and we're going to get some errors because anywhere we're using this set function, we're not passing in the system image name. So we also need to update our convenience initializer here. To pass in the system image name of a string. And then this, our set function that we've been changing down here, takes in a system image name. And you notice like the parameters on our set function are the same as our convenience initializer. And that's because we're just passing everything through. So do command B, make sure we're good. Well, we're not good because we got all these errors. So I'm going to click on the error. And we'll go to the missing parameter, right? As you see, we're passing in background color. And you know what? I'm going to go back to our convenience initializer here because now we don't want this to say background color. We want this to just be color because we're tinted. And that's just simplifying our initializer here. So instead of background color, it's just color. And we'll have to update that as well. What did I mess up here? Oh, okay, yeah. We're just going to update all of our GF button initializers here again to say color. And then we need to pass in a system image name. It's already going to do that. So for our GF alert VC, like this is always okay. So we'll do a little check mark. So open up SF symbols, or you can just type what I type, but I'm showing you how I do it. I type check, can't type, huh? There you go. And we're going to go with this little circle motif, right? So I'll do Command Shift C, or you can right click, copy name, however you prefer. So that'll give me the checkmark circle. Go back to Xcode. That's the string I'm going to pass in for my alerts. Do Command B. Again, same thing here. Let's get this down to color. So where are we at? We're on our search VC. Okay, so this is the green get followers button, as you can see here. So here I'm going to have like a little system image name. And then the string I want, again, back to SF symbols, type in person. And okay, you have all kinds of stuff here, right? We're going to go with this person 3 here. So Command Shift C to get that. And again, you can choose whatever you like and play around with it. But back to Xcode. So now we'll paste that in there, do Command B. I'm just going through basically all my buttons, right? So, okay, so where are we at here? We're in GitHub profile. Okay, so I want something that looks like a profile for the SF symbol here. So the image name, we'll go back to SF symbols, probably this person thing. We'll go back to just this one person fill. So I'll right click, copy name, or it's just person. I guess I could have just typed that one. That one's pretty easy, right? Person. Okay, Command B. And then the last button here is get followers, which we'll do the same one we did before just to stay consistent. So add the missing parameter name, system image name. I think that was just person.3. Yeah, person.3 is what it was. Person.3, do a Command B. Okay, so again, what we're doing is back to our GF button. We're passing the system image name, and that is going into our set function here that basically adds the image to our button configuration, gives it some padding, and puts it leading. So now let's run it, and you're going to see our buttons just have a little extra spice to them, right? Like get followers. There you go. There's our image. And you see it's on the leading. If we did .trailing, it would be after the letters. If I tap this, okay, now you see our OK button has a little SF symbol there as well. So we'll hit OK. And then the last one here, we'll go to any user here. Now you see get a profile has a little profile, get followers has the multiple followers. So again, super simple, right? 3 lines of code, maybe even less if leading's the default. You can delete that. If you don't want padding, you don't need that. So very simple to get these, again, Apple looking buttons. And that's what I think is so great about them. But again, feel free, watch that WWDC video that goes a lot deeper. Play around with different styles, the fill, tinted, gray, play around with different color combos, make this your own, put some different images in there, put them on the top, put them on the bottom, right? I believe there's even like subtitles for buttons, right? Configuration.subtitle, right? Yeah, so you can have like get followers, and then you can have a subtitle under the button. So you have like multi-line text buttons. There's a lot you can do with these new configurations. I think they're great. And again, the main use case is if you want an Apple style button. Again, if you have some crazy custom button, you got to do it the way we've been doing it. But if you want the Apple style buttons, these are great.